Surgeon-guided, technology-driven, robotic arm-assisted surgical technology for hip and knee replacements. Available at Kansas Spine and Specialty Hospital, proud sponsor of KPTS, Public Television for Kansas.
The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.
These stories are like old friends. Their lives radiate from the screen like prophets of the past. They were teachers, but not in a classroom. Instead, they taught about life to those around them who cared to listen, and I was their student.
If the walls could talk, what stories they would tell.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're glad you're here. And we start with Wichita's Eaton Hotel. It's one of the city's most historic buildings. You know exactly where it is. It's where Prohibitionist Carrie Nation took her famous stand for temperance. The hotel also hosted some of the world's most famous people, in the early days anyway.
But time took its toll, of course. By the 1990s, the Eaton had become a haven for the disenfranchised and home to the otherwise homeless.
Now, when I stopped in there in 1992, I didn't really know what to expect. But what I found was a place that was loved by those people who were so much more than stereotypes.
It's home to me. It really is.
If you like it, you'll stay. If you don't, you'll move.
These are the folks of the Eaton Hotel in downtown Wichita. The old place reeks of history. Its wooden staircase creaks, the dim halls talk softly of another time. It's a proud old relic, but its image has been tarnished over the years, and most of us have stereotyped the people who live here. That's a mistake. Over at the elevator, that's Mike Gilbert. He'll make sure you get to the right floor. At the front desk, Peggy Fleury. A room is $17 with a bath, $19.
I wouldn't care to live anyplace else here in Wichita. I feel secure here, even the way people talk about it. This is my home as far as I'm concerned.
Glorine Glass has lived here for nearly 30 years. She used to be the desk clerk. Now folks call her the Queen of the Eaton.
This is a working man's hotel, and that's what we used to have, is all working people. But now there's just a mixture of old people and old retired people and people on Social Security like I am now.
In the lobby, Donald J. Allen Jr., but folks here call him Pork Chop. He's the eyes and ears of the Eaton.
It has changed. It really has. As long as I've been here, I've seen them come and go. I've seen the changes in the place.
It's home, and home is cluttered quite often.
The good people are coming in right now. But riffraff we don't want in this building.
Glorine doesn't get out much. She says she's always been a loner. When she was 2, polio struck. She lost the use of one arm, and she says she'll never forget how the other kids treated her.
I never outgrew it either. They made so much of me, mimicked me, the way I walked and the way my hands swung and what have you, that I'm just a person that stays in. I feel much happier by myself.
I can see all over town, everything over town. I can see doggone near about a mile. Well, I tell you what, the only way they're gonna get me out of there is push me out the window.
People are what they act like, and however you treat people, that's the way they'll treat you usually.
Let the people know how it is down here.
Well, that was 1992, and 8 years later, the hotel was completely renovated to become an upscale apartment building. Now, Glorine and Donald and the other longtime residents had to find other places to live. It is now called Eaton Place, and it's home to much younger and a much more affluent clientele.
I love that story, though, Larry.
It's a piece of history, and
really
those people like Glorine and Porkchop that you saw in there, they are pieces of history, and they loved living there.
They loved it. And you could rent it weekly, nightly, whatever
You bet,
back
whatever fits your profile.
Wow. Okay. Well, unfortunately, to some people nowadays, the news media are considered the enemy. But that wasn't the case a few years ago in the town of Ellsworth.
That's when the local newspaper office was destroyed by fire. Now, townsfolk rallied to help keep the presses rolling there. Take a look.
It was pretty obvious when I got downtown that it was very serious.
So serious, you could see the fire for miles that Sunday evening along the rolling hills of north central Kansas.
You know, we tried to post on our website to get information out to people about what was going on, and there wasn't much else we could do.
It was the newspaper office that was burning, and downstairs, the couple who owned the building had their home. They barely made it out.
The firefighters were just incredible. They managed to confine that fire to one building for the most part.
So the newspaper offices were destroyed, and most thought, no office, no newspaper.
We never for 1 minute considered not putting out a paper.
And they did. This edition of the Ellsworth County Independent Reporter came out on time. The front page picture, of course, the fire.
And we were so busy just trying to get a paper out that we didn't have a lot of time to feel sorry for ourselves.
The paper was made possible by many people. The superintendent of schools gave the newspaper staff access to the school's computers. The Salina Journal offered equipment and expertise along with other newspapers who volunteered staff and other support.
It's been overwhelming.
It was the support of the people of the town that overwhelmed Linda. A vacant building just a few doors down from the fire was offered to the newspaper staff, and Linda gratefully took it.
Small towns, that's what they do best. When people need help, everybody's there.
And while many came to pick up their newspapers, others dropped by with kind words and special memories.
You know, newspaper people have this reputation as really not very nice people, and that's just not true.
The computers are borrowed, as are the tables and everything else. But the paper is functioning.
We've got to get more lines in here.
In her column thanking the community, Linda wrote, "When a major fire disrupts your town, it's more important than ever for the newspaper to do its job. It offers a sense of normalcy during a time or event that is anything but normal."
Hi, lady.
Hello. Normal was longtime employee Linda Bushnell delivering the paper throughout the county as if nothing had happened.
That was my business manager's office. A beam fell down and just literally crushed her desk.
Back downtown, Linda was retrospective as she looked at the remains of the newspaper building. With the newspaper being the story, she said it may help her be a better reporter.
We always need to remember that we're dealing with people's lives here, and we need to be as careful as we can.
Fire might take the building, but it couldn't stop the presses.
And we'll be out next week, too.
Now, soon after that 2011 fire, the newspaper found a new permanent home a block north of the old location in downtown Ellsworth. There was never a week that the paper wasn't published, and Linda at this point is still the editor. Glad you're still publishing. That's wonderful.
So cool. Those small town newspapers, I feel like they're needed in small towns.
A small town has to have a newspaper, or at least a regional newspaper, because that's the knit. That's the thing that knits everybody together.
Absolutely. All right, now to the Harvey County town of Halstead, where there is a hardware store.
And it's a very special hardware store. So what, you ask? Well, have you ever seen a hardware store like this?
My whole purpose, my goal was to create a time capsule so that when a person came in here, they would feel like they have stepped back into about 1910. And it's always been a hardware store. I'm still a hardware store. People come in and they say, "Oh, you're an antique store." And I say, I'm a hardware store, a 1910 hardware store.
Margaret Krasinger is a master at old restored hardware. Need something from the 1900s? She's probably got it.
I do have those pieces. They're exquisite. They are pieces of art. They're beautiful. They come from the Victorian era, and they would date around 1880s. And it took 2 years to refurbish this store and to get it to look like it is today. To keep up with it, it's a constant thing. I'm never finished. I'm always rebuilding, refurbishing, cleaning. The building itself was built in 1878 and 79. The hardware store was started in 1885. These were brought in to me, but they actually came from out of an old hotel. These are called Art Deco porcelain fixtures. Like this one was from a ceiling, or it could be from the wall. You notice the little chain here to turn it off and on. Yeah, I pretty much know where everything is. This area here is for the person who's looking for kitchen memorabilia. The old coffee tins. Look at all the potato mashers, you know. There's so many different ones. The fun is finding this hardware that most of the time is painted, isn't complete, is missing parts, and I can take it and build it, clean it, put it together, and it's a beautiful piece. It satisfies me when they say, "Oh, I've been looking for this for years, and here it is, you have it." Oh, it's fun to come to work. I love it. I mean, it's just a warm, warm feeling. There's many times when I've been depressed and down, but I can come to the store and feel comfortable.
Now, by the time you see this show, the hardware store could have a new owner. Now, Margaret told me recently that she wanted to sell the place so she can focus more on writing. Now, she and her husband, they are also authors. They have master's degrees, and they've written several historical books about cowboys and the Wild West. An amazing place. If you haven't visited, you need to go there.
A lot of history, and you can buy history there, I understand. If you're doing restorations, say, from the 1800s, they have hardware from those times.
Oh, absolutely.
All different time periods.
It's an incredible place, you know, and just to be able to go there and touch a piece of history and know that you could have that in your home if you're restoring something, it's really wonderful. But they're great writers, and they want to concentrate on their books now.
With their books. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, there are lots of them available to read in the town of Dexter now, thanks to Lynn Pettigrew Norris and her husband.
Now, they decided their town did need a library, so they set out to build one as a labor of love to their community and their late daughter.
If you're driving by on the street, to look at it, it just looks like an old historical building. It's the original Shattered store, the town's grocery store. Those are the original seats that I sat on as a kid waiting on my dad.
That was a lifetime ago, and now Lynn Pettigrew Norris and her husband Randy are hoping to fulfill a dream, to turn this old building into a library to promote literacy and reading in Dexter.
If you go back and look, even though it looks sometimes overwhelming, from where we started, we've gone leaps and bounds.
The library is silently dedicated to their daughter Jennifer, who was killed in a car accident in the late 1990s. Well, to the surprise of many, the Norrises added a lighthouse to the rear of the library.
Some of our happiest days were on the ocean in California and North Carolina, and we did visit Cape Hatteras as a family, and that's one of those frozen in time days that I remember, with four small children climbing around the lighthouse there. The reason we have the lighthouse is it's, to me, a way for the local kids to learn about the oceans and to kind of interest them in travel and the ocean.
While they've come a long way, there is still a long way to go. Inside where the library will be, the dream is still being built. Up the stairs is where the computer lab will be.
I love computers, so this is one of the most exciting places to me.
Downstairs, sheetrock and insulation wait for knowledgeable hands.
If you ever see the scratching on the walls, any measurements, that's our blueprint.
4 portholes on the outside of the building preview where a large fish tank will sit.
This is the base for a huge saltwater aquarium. It'll happen when it's supposed to.
In the back of the library, the Norrises have built a thrift store. Sales from that venture will help fund the library. Then a few feet away, a small cabin, which can be rented to provide extra space for the town's visitors.
The project is right here. It never goes away until it's finished.
The Norrises estimate that at least 200 people in Dexter have helped with this project. It is a lot to do and a lot to dream.
What it is to me is, at this point, to be very honest, a huge burden.
But a burden they happily carry. Now Lynn has written 2 books detailing her family's life, the tragedies, the dreams, the good times and bad. Both Lynn and Randy are dreamers, but for them, the library will happen when it's time.
People do what they can, and I think we're getting close. I look forward to that day where we can open up and just be a service for the community.
Well, that was in 2012, and now you're about to see the rest of the story. Take a look at these photos of the completed library. The Norrises did everything they said they would, including the fish tanks and 23,000 books. The Lighthouse Library operates as a nonprofit organization. It's staffed by Lynn and other volunteers, and they found a novel way to help fund it. They built a cabin next to the library. They rent it out to hunters and other tourists. Lynn says they're converting the thrift shop they operated for a few years into a second cabin for visitors. Now, for more details, look for the link we've posted on the Hatteberg's People page at kpts.org.
Now to another community-minded Kansan who demonstrated that age is just a number.
Yeah, Opal Wilson was 98 years old when she became the chair of the Reno County United Way, and she was a real dynamo.
That's what I do. I just keep on going.
There she is. At nearly 99, Opal Wilson is the chair of the United Way campaign for Reno County. On This Morning, she's at Promise Regional Medical Center to promote the campaign.
She naturally engages people. She's endearing, and she just naturally inspires people wherever she goes.
Well, she says, I am Opal Wilson, and I'm looking for somebody to say howdy to me. Howdy. Oh, howdy right back at you.
Opal works the room like a veteran, telling folks that when they give to the United Way, a portion of the money goes here to Hutchinson's Elmdale 50 Plus Center, which is a United Way supported seniors program.
It's not only me, it's everybody that comes down there. It really helps us all.
She's a person that helps people help themselves.
I will read the announcements.
She gets the noon meal started.
Well, it's a place to go. It keeps me occupied. I know I've got friends down there. I get to see everybody this way, get to say hello to everybody.
She was named Kansas Volunteer of the Year last year, loves riding in power parachutes. Motorcycles fit her just fine too, and so does dancing. And who knows what else this ageless woman is doing.
Yeah, this keeps me limbered up. Oh yeah, I stop when I get to either 25 or 50, whichever one I want to how many laps I want to go.
Going is what her life is all about. And as she gives presentations all over Reno County for United Way, she talks about the time she broke her hip and how the Elmdale 50 Plus Center helped her rehabilitate.
And one little lady says, Opal, I haven't had my hug. So I went to get her hug. I turned, but my body did, but my feet didn't. I landed on the floor, broke my hip. The doctor told me, he said, Opal, when anybody your age breaks a hip, it's hospital, nursing home, cemetery all in 1 year. I said, hey, get me out of that category. I got places to go and people to aggravate, and I've been doing it ever since.
She's real life. People can identify with her. She has been through, her story is is everybody's everyday life.
Because you are helping a lot of people, and if you've got a mother, a dad, or grandparents at home, tell them to get off their family and get down there, and we will keep them going.
Opal has done over 125 United Way presentations this year, and that work, plus her work at the Senior Center,
3 is 10, 10 is 20, thank you.
And her refusal to sit in a rocking chair she believes is the key to her longevity.
Another one done, dear.
Another one, yeah.
Opal kept volunteering up until her death at age 101. Hutchinson's Elmdale Neighborhood Center then started holding an annual Opal Wilson Memorial Dinner and Dance.
She was so spunky and so much fun to be around, and you can see why the United Fund would want her to front for them, because everybody just gave her money. She was just a nice person.
What a fundraiser a 98-year-old would be. And
Oh,
she
she
had a
would
lot
be.
of spunk, too.
Yeah, oh, she was wonderful. Also in Hutchinson, you'll find Steve Harmon and Steve Connard, persevering and sharing their city's history. I shot this story back in 2010.
If there's something historical about something, we'll dig until we find what it was and how it happened.
Over 1,000 pictures that we have of downtown. There's so many of the buildings that we still have yet to find a photo of.
You might call Steve Harmon and Steve Connard history detectives.
Don't get any better than that.
They are out to nab any historic picture of Hutchinson that they can find.
Well, there's times that I've found a picture and have put myself in that place.
But through the photos, we get to relive that portion of history and to find out more and more about it.
The two Steves are obsessed with these aging pictures. Now they've turned their hobby of collecting historic photos into a side business.
Because we know that over time the originals are going to decay, so we're trying to basically digitize the complete collection so that we can pull it up both digitally, and we also use the digital format in our history talks.
They not only give presentations to groups, but sell at cost digitally reproduced photos of Hutchinson.
Well, actually, the best part is finding the picture. It's just like Christmas for us.
All of that's gone now today.
Yeah.
So.
What's fun is to take a walk with them downtown and look at how some Hutchinson corners have changed over the years.
That was a Commercial National Bank, and that photo is about 1900, wasn't it?
1900, 1905.
Yeah.
And so many of the original buildings weren't built to withstand time. This was the Hutchinson National Bank in the photo, although it's been many different things over time, clothing store, you name it. But to save the building, they took off the third floor and knocked it down to 2 to keep the building. This was the Bassani Hotel. It was built around 1908. It was torn down about 1963-64. Took about a year to get it torn down.
This particular location is the most talked about over the years of the locals of why did we tear that down, and we never should have torn that down. It was just a beautiful old building that everyone misses now that it's gone.
Other pictures also fascinating. In 1924, a Ku Klux Klan parade in downtown Hutchinson. Their white uniforms and pointed hats make them hard to miss. Another picture from the Hutchinson Fairgrounds in 1911 with President William Howard Taft descending the stairs. So, from floods that inundated the downtown to stores that are lost to history, pictures like Gene's hamburger stand are moments the Steves savor. It is history rediscovered, one print at a time.
It's not work for us, it's just fun to get it to this end result.
And the guys are still at it. They've now collected some 2,000 photos, and they do PowerPoint presentations on Hutchinson history for local civic groups. And each time they begin their presentation by, guess what? showing Larry's story that we just saw.
Well, we had a good time together. Anytime I do these stories, I have a good time with the people I'm with, and they're great guys, and they're preserving history, and it's wonderful.
And in turn, you're preserving history by doing these stories.
We do our best, don't we? All right, another place where history is recorded is your local cemetery, and in 1984, a very young Larry Hatteberg got some lessons in life from W.D. Tabor, who took care of the graveyard in Pretty Prairie.
A few years back, a lyricist in writing the words to a popular song wrote, "When you're born is really when you start to die." You know, for a lot of people, that's very depressing, but for others, it doesn't bother them in the least. Take, for instance, a man named W.D. Tabor of rural Pretty Prairie. For him, cemeteries aren't a symbol of death. They have been his life.
If you're a Christian, there's no reason to be depressed. It's just one of God's things. Life, and we're in death all the time.
That's W.D. Tabor, the caretaker of the Lone Star Cemetery near Pretty Prairie. This cemetery is really a testament, a tombstone testament to the man who's nurtured and cared for it for the past 40 years.
Well, of course, I've always had they said I had a green thumb, whatever that is.
That thumb has made this country's cemetery an oasis of marble, grass, and flowers, a beauty mark on the face of the prairie.
Oh, yeah. And when it's nice weather and not so hot, they like to come out from town and mosey around out here because they like it. It's so peaceful. You don't have to hurry about it, and that's the nice thing about it. Do as you please. Want to go fishing, you go.
Recently, Tabor has had to take it a little easier than he likes because of a health problem. At 82, he says he should have retired years ago.
It's sure hard to let somebody else do it when something's to be done. I ought to do it myself. Yeah. But I guess when you get old, you have to change. I never dreamed I'd ever get this old, but I am.
Tabor manicures every inch of his cemetery. A dropping water table and a hot summer day have been his enemies, and it's his sweat, his labor, and his time that keeps it beautiful. And he has little patience for the people who don't check with him before they plant their flowers.
And they've learned it pretty well. Once in a while you have somebody from Wichita or Hutchinson or someplace way off somewhere. Because it's a country cemetery, they think they can come out here and do things, and they find to their sorrow they can't.
Tabor has his rules and his regulations and his moments. Moments when he's had to bury a friend. His attitude, though, is that of a realist, a man who doesn't dwell on sorrow.
I buried lots of friends. They're dead, you got to get rid of them. Cemetery isn't going to hurt anybody. It's the living folks that you got to get along with.
W.D., an amazing guy, isn't he?
He was something else. He was just a kind of an old cemetery philosopher, if you will.
Teaches you a lot about life.
He could, and he did.
And by the way, I
Yes.
love the old Hatteberg's people. That one's 30-some years old, and you still have your mustache.
I did at that point. I had my mustache. I did shave my mustache later, not long after that little stand-up inside that piece. But it served its purpose. I grew it to look older.
There you go.
And I did. So I became older, and I didn't need it anymore. So anyway, while she's laughing, we're out of time for this week. And remember, if you have a question or a comment, just send us an email to hattebergspeople@kpts.org. We, of course, love hearing from you, and we really appreciate you watching. I'm Larry Hatteberg.
And I'm Susan Peters. We'll see you next time on Hatteberg's People.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.